Hello and welcome back, consumers. I'm Altari, the professional gamer, and this is another Pax Friday review, the show where we talk about all of the fun, interesting, new, and exciting information that has dropped for Pax Day over the last week. I am back from my short little vacation, and while I am both relieved that there was no exceptionally large news, I'm also a little sad. But I have a feeling that in the next couple of weeks, we are going to be getting some great information about a release date and time for early access. I'm still holding true to what I said last week, with it either being on June 7th or June 9th that we're going to hear something a little bit more. But for today's episode, we are going to cover all the stuff that we missed last week and some new stuff this week. I think there's some cool little lore tidbits in the post for today as well. So let's go ahead and get on into that. But before we get started, don't forget to like this video if this is the type of content you enjoy. Subscribe so that you can get notified whenever we come out with new Pax Day or Pax Day related content, and share this video with any of your friends who might be interested in Pax Day. All right, let's go and get caught up. All right, and here we are at the first set of screenshots that we got. These are from last week, but they were still really cool. And there was actually one that I wanted to point out, but we have a couple of instances here of different doublets. Looks like we have a female version and a male version, or maybe these are both male versions, it looks like, and they're just different qualities. It seems we have the shorter sleeved one, and then we have a longer sleeved one. Both actually seem relatively similar in terms of the quality, though the second one seems to have a little bit more texturing to it down here and some different colors. But really cool that we are getting a lot of these different varieties for armor. And then here it looks like we have two different versions of a cloak or a robe. And there was a similar version to this one that existed in the Alpha 2, or at least for a period of time. And we, in the clan I'm in, called it the anime robe because of the really long arms. This one looks to be similar to that. However, the one that was in game was blue. This one also looks like it's got a little bit more of a sheen to it. And I have a suspicion for what that sheen is, which we can talk about in literally a couple of seconds. But it was pretty cool to see a couple of new types of armor here. Now, this one definitely looks like it's a little bit more ornate, or it's finer quality. And that's actually what I wanted to talk about right here. So a lot of people saw this, and I think some people were maybe a little bit less enthused by the screenshot as a whole. It just kind of looks like a development table for clothes, specifically a really unexciting jacket. But when you actually look down at the bottom here, you'll see that it's actually on a scale of rarity versus quality / durability. Now, I don't know if that means the x-axis here truly means that quality and durability are tied together. It makes sense if it was, but then we also have the different tiers here. So you can see that there's a hemp or flax tier here, and they're relatively low rarity and relatively low durability. Then you can go up to wool with slightly more durable here, but then all the way at the very top we have the exceptionally rare silk, and the most high quality or high durability is velvet. Now, these are obviously all going to be subject to change, but what I found really interesting here that I don't think a lot of people were really talking about is this is all the same jacket. Like, this is the same recipe. It's the cloth jacket recipe. We've been able to make this already, but the difference here is that there are different qualities of ingredients that are actually going into it. So you can see at the very bottom here, we have this burlap coarse type fabric, but then at the very top, we have twill, satin, and velvet. And they all have different kind of textures to them as well. So all of the silk have kind of this nice sheen about them all the way across, where the linen has a little bit more defined patterns to it. And you even have a twill, or for wool, when it's woven, you have this twill herringbone pattern where there's kind of more of those herringbone style weaves that are integrated into the fabric. All of this, though, is really for the same base model, or yeah, I guess model is the best way to describe it. And then these are textures that are going on top of it, and they vary based on the ingredients that are being put in. And I don't think this system's really in the game yet in terms of Alpha 2 and where we're at with it. But I think this is more of the direction that the developers at Mainframe are going, where we can choose all of these different types of materials that go into making said armor. And while the actual model might look the same, the quality or durability of it might be different. You might have different attributes associated with it. And then obviously the most visually apparent thing is that they actually change in color and sheen and the actual visible quality that you're getting. Now, this is really just talking about the textile component that goes into making this particular piece of gear. But if I recall correctly, on the recipes for this linen jacket or this tailored jacket, there's also leather and potentially even some types of metal that are integrated into this as well. So not only can you modify the silk or the cotton or the linen, the textiles that are getting put in, but maybe you'll also be able to change and modify all of the different aspects of the leather components or any other component that might exist in these particular pieces of gear that you can craft. That's something that I thought was really, really cool to see, and that they're actually working on that right now. And then that also has a gameplay ramification. It's not just how something looks, but it's also how the durability or quality is taken into account as well. So really cool to see that, and I hope that we see more. Maybe this means that in the earlier part of early access, closer to when early access releases, we will start seeing an updated crafting system that will allow us to kind of select the different resources that we put into a recipe, and then that changes or modifies what we get out. That also plays into other aspects where maybe you can add different magical properties to your crafts. Maybe this is the start of enchanting. I don't really know, but it is definitely something that is cool to note and to see that it's actively being worked on. Now, with this week's post, we got kind of a scattered set of pictures, and this is the one that was on the official Discord. And then this was an image that showed up on, I think it was Instagram, but they shared a bunch of different things across all of the different mediums that are on social media. Now, there are two things that are very obvious in this picture. The first one is we have what looks to be a woman's hand on the left and potentially a man's hand on the right. And those are confirmed that we'll see in later pictures. And we have this emblem for Pax Dei, and the one hand is kind of handing this off, and it's almost like the image of man and God that's in like the Sistine Chapel, right? Where there's someone that's bestowing upon someone else this necklace. Maybe it's magical, maybe it has some kind of religious importance. That's neither here nor there. But the thing that also is a little bit more apparent in this particular image is this thing that is on top of the hill. So we can see that there's a valley here. And in the previous image, we can kind of actually see something up there. But when I first saw it, I just thought it was clouds. But I think this looks to be a castle or potentially a fort. So I also, at the very beginning of the year, Mainframe, I think, did an initial tease for either PvP or like siege-based gameplay, because they put a trebuchet, or, well, it was called trebuchet, but it was really a catapult emote onto the official Discord, and only a couple people noticed it. And when I saw it, I was like, that must be PvP, because why else would you need to have these siege engines unless you're attacking players? That ended up coming true. We ended up having access to a PvP zone. So maybe this is implying that we might get access to some kind of castle type thing in early access, or at least sooner in early access. I'm also just making brash suppositions right now, so I do apologize if that irritates you. Either way, the next image that we saw was a more clear picture of the woman who is handing off this necklace. Now, I made the guess that this might be Proteonia. This is one of the first Redeemers, and for those of you who are just joining in on the Pax Dei lore train here, the Redeemers are people or divine beings that came down and bestowed upon humanity different gifts, and Proteonia is like the first one. She's the mother of humanity, basically. And to me, this feels like a very religious image. Like I said, it has a mirror to the Sistine Chapel where it's God and man. So maybe this is Redeemer and man, and she seems to be handing off the necklace to another person. And here is that person who has his arm stretched out. He is in armor. He is bedecked in all of the best gear. This guy definitely spent a lot of time in crafting menus or had a friend who did it for him. But I think this might be one of two individuals, also potentially Redeemers. That's either Phaonios or Armazel. And I'm leaning more in the direction of Armazel. I don't know if Proteonia and Armazel are supposed to have existed at the same time. I have a feeling that Phaonios and Armazel did. But many of you might recall Armazel was the Redeemer who went down into the deep, dark depths of a mountain and never emerged again. It was his greed that led to his downfall, or supposed downfall, but he was the Redeemer that brought magic to mankind in the form of imbuing armor with it. Now, if you're asking me, the man who imbued armor with magic seems to also fit the bill of this particular character, who has these really intricate engravings in their shoulder pads. It also is seemingly reflected here in the greaves that they're wearing as well. This is really intricate metalwork. That to me seems like something that would be created by the vast skills of a Redeemer who brought the art of magical blacksmithing to the people of Pax Dei. And then, lore things aside, the last thing that I really wanted to cover, this is a commonly requested feature that a lot of players asked for, I think going all the way back to Alpha 1. And this, from what I understand, was not something that was being worked on beforehand. This was something that was worked on as a direct effect of player feedback. We, as a community, all asked for signage and the ability to determine what the heck is going on in all of those chests that we have. This is a result of our feedback, and I find that really, really cool. And I also find it kind of a creative way of doing it, where it's keeping things in the lore, and it's kind of Mainframe's own take on what signage looks like. So they came up with a lot of interesting icons here, and they even added what I would imagine is how you would do this if you existed in the Middle Ages. So this isn't black ink. They didn't go in there with a marker. This is literally someone went and burned these logos or these signs into the shapes that they wanted. So you have the Pax Dei emblem right here. I still am trying to find out what that might mean. Maybe it's religious material or relics or something, but we as players can really determine what all of that is. And you can see that it looks like it was even burned into. It wasn't something that was drawn on top of. It was something that literally was burned or scorched into this wood in order to make a sign. And that's really how it probably would have been done back in the medieval ages. So I find it really, really cool that this is how it would be. It also goes without saying that the reason why there are pictures and not words is because, technically speaking, if we were being lore accurate, most individuals during the medieval times had no clue how to read. Now, maybe that's not the case in Pax Dei's parallel universe, but it most certainly was true in our history in the real world. So it makes sense that we wouldn't have written text on signage. We would just have icons that people would recognize and be like, I'm looking for a weapon. That looks like a weapon on that. So I'm going to go and buy weapons or make weapons at wherever that sign is. So all of that is all that we had over the last 2 weeks. It's dry, I know, but typically it is driest before the dawn, and this post was called the dawn. So I would imagine that that implies that as early as next week, we will have a lot more information. I believe, if my clock here or calendar is correct, that the 7th and 9th are coming up next week. We will be live streaming on at least one, if not both, of those days during the actual announcement section for the Summer Game Fest, as well as the PC Gaming Show. If there's any announcement in particular of which one of those we should watch, if there's going to be a Pax Day announcement and there's a pre-warning, then we will be there. We will be streaming it. We will be up and ready to go at least 30 minutes before the actual event goes live. I hope to see all of you there. We will be dual streaming on both YouTube and Twitch, so either of your favorite platforms for that. I hope that you all can make it, and I am really excited, and hopefully there is actually an announcement on either of those. Otherwise, we're just going to be hanging out, and we'll probably end up talking about Pax Day at some point on stream. So I hope to see you there. And until next week, I am Altari, the Professional Gamer. If you like this type of content, don't forget to like, subscribe so that you can get notified whenever we come out with new Pax Day related content, and share this video with any of your friends who might be interested in Pax Day. I know I definitely appreciate it. I will see you next week. Have a good one.